Shadows of loneliness. Serana moved through the modern streets of New Orleans like a wraith, her presence barely noticed by the bustling crowds. The city had changed since the days of the Crimson Dawn, and her time trapped in the Shadow Realm felt like a distant nightmare. Yet, despite the passage of centuries, the gnawing emptiness inside her remained. She stalked her prey through the dark alleys, the choice of victim meaningless. A young woman walking alone, a homeless man huddled against the cold, an unsuspecting tourist. None of it mattered. Serana's moral code had long since eroded, leaving her a predator driven by an insatiable hunger. As the moon cast eerie shadows on the cobblestone streets, Serana struck. She emerged from the darkness with the swiftness of a spectre, her fangs sinking into the soft flesh of her victim's neck. The warm rush of blood filled her senses, momentarily quenching the void within. The prey's life ebbed away, their struggles fading into silence. Finished, Serana let the lifeless body drop to the ground and melted back into the shadows. The city continued its restless hum, oblivious to the horror that had just transpired. She returned to her home, an isolated estate hidden away from prying eyes. It had been her sanctuary for years, a place where she could disappear from the world. Inside, the silence was suffocating. Serana sat in the grand parlor, the weight of her loneliness pressing down on her. She had forgotten this feeling during her adventures with the Crimson Dawn and her encounters with Eldur. The memory of Eldur's name made the void within her shrink ever so slightly. Eldur, the one she felt a connection to after so many years. An Eldur like herself, born from suffering and driven by vengeance. Although an Eldur could not love in the human sense, Serana knew that a connection could ease the unrelenting pain. She thought of Eldur, the times they fought side by side, their shared quest for retribution, binding them in a way she hadn't experienced before. The battles, the moments of silent understanding, the brief reprieves from their eternal torment. These memories made her burden a little lighter. Serana rose from her chair and walked to the window, looking out at the city that had been her hunting ground for so long. The streets were bathed in the glow of streetlights, shadows dancing in the alleys. She felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in centuries, a desire for connection, a need to see Eldur again. As she stood there, contemplating the darkness of her existence and the glimmer of hope that Eldur's memory brought, Serana made a decision. She would find Eldur. Perhaps together they could find a way to ease their suffering, to find some semblance of peace in their cursed immortality. For now, the night was her ally, and the hunt would continue. But somewhere in the shadows, the promise of reunion gave her a reason to endure. The ritual of shadows. Serana stood alone in the dimly lit parlor of her estate, her mind racing with a singular thought. Eldur. She spoke into the shadows, an ancient method of communication, her voice resonating with a mix of desperation and determination. Eldur, are you there? The silence that followed was deafening. She tried again and again, each time her hope diminishing with the lack of response. Frustration and fear gnawed at her insides. Determined, Serana decided to take more drastic measures. She began preparing a ritual, an ancient and forgotten rite, known only to the oldest of their kind, drawing intricate symbols on the ground. With a mixture of blood and ash, she chanted the words of shadow, summoning the energy needed to locate Eldur's essence. As she completed the ritual, she waited, her heart, what remained of it, heavy with anticipation. Nothing. The emptiness that followed struck her with a profound sense of loss. No essence could mean only one thing. Eldur was no more. The realization hit her harder than anything she had ever experienced. Eldur, the one kindred spirit who had eased her suffering, was gone. The pain she felt was overwhelming, eclipsing even the darkest moments of her past. She had not understood how much he had meant to her until this moment. In a blind rage, she began destroying everything around her. Furniture splintered under her strength, priceless artifacts shattered into pieces. Her anger was boundless, directed at herself for not recognizing Eldur's importance sooner and for not being there when he needed her most. Then, in the midst of her fury, she felt it. A single tear ran down her face. She wiped it away, staring at the moisture on her fingertips in disbelief. "Impossible," she whispered. "Elders cannot cry. We cannot love or pity. We know only pain. How is this possible?" Falling to her knees within the ritual circle, she let the energy of her rage and sorrow flow through her. It was then she sensed something. A faint, barely discernible essence. Eldur, alive but just barely. With renewed focus, Serana channeled every ounce of her energy into the ritual, seeking to pinpoint Eldur's location. The vision came to her slowly, a blurry image that gradually sharpened into clarity. There he was, lying on the ground in a small field in what was now Germany. "I must go to him," she whispered, her voice filled with a mix of determination and urgency. "I must save him and myself." Gathering her strength, Serana prepared to travel. She would cross continents, defy time, and face any obstacle to reach Eldur. For in saving him, she knew she might also save herself from the abyss of loneliness and despair that threatened to consume her. With the ritual's power still coursing through her, Serana stepped into the shadows, her destination clear. Germany awaited, and with it, the possibility of redemption and reunion with the one being who had come to mean everything to her. The reawakening, Eldur lay on the ground where his small shack had once stood. This place, now a forgotten ruin, had been his home for many years, a silent witness to his joy and sorrow. Buried here centuries ago were his wife and unborn child, a grave marked only by his eternal grief. He had not fed for weeks, hoping that starvation would finally end his torment. The all-encompassing urge to feed was a vampire's primal drive, one that could not be denied, except by someone who had lost everything. Eldur's failure felt complete. He had been defeated again and again throughout the Crimson Dawn saga and within the Shadow Realm. Cast aside like an insignificant object, his life felt as worthless as it had on the auction block when he was a slave. He lay on the cold earth, waiting for his end. His body was withered, his powers diminished. Death was approaching, and he welcomed it. "I have killed thousands," he whispered to the ground, "each of them a retribution for my pain. But where has it brought me? Right back to the beginning. There is no retribution, no peace, no one who can stop the pain, no one but death. Then send death, so I may embrace him and end my suffering." His vision was fading, and his body felt weaker with each passing moment. As he lay there, he saw a figure in black standing over him. He laughed weakly. "Come, take me then. I welcome release from this pain." "Eldur," a weak, caring voice said. Eldur's emptiness shrank slightly as he instantly recognized the voice of Serana. He squinted, trying to focus on her face. She was a beacon in his darkness. "Eldur, you must feed, or you will die. If you die, I will be alone again." "I need you," Serana pleaded. A weak smile struggled onto Eldur's face. "Serana, you are the only one to do this for so long, the only one who could bring my smile back. But I cannot. I have lost at every turn. I failed in every endeavor. I have never won or succeeded. I am a failure, cursed to lose and revel in pain forever." "No," Serana shouted, her voice filled with a fierce determination. You have won. You have won me. I know love is impossible for us, but at every encounter, every moment together, you have been the one who has eased my pain, my suffering. You are the answer to the void I feel within me. Together, we can help each other. We can seek retribution as a whole, as one. Eldur looked into Serana's eyes, seeing the desperation and sincerity within them. Her words pierced through his despair. She knelt beside him, cradling his head in her hands. The warmth of her touch, the intensity of her gaze ignited a spark of hope in him. "Feed, Eldur," Serana urged. "Feed and live. We can face this together. We can find a way to ease each other's pain." With great effort, Eldur raised his hand to touch Serana's face. "You are the only light in my darkness," he whispered. "For you, I will try." Serana helped him sit up, exposing her wrist to his fangs. Eldur hesitated for a moment, then sank his teeth into her flesh, drawing the life-giving blood into his veins. As he fed, strength and vitality began to return to his body. The connection between them deepened, their shared pain and determination intertwining. When he finally released her wrist, Eldur felt a renewed sense of purpose. He looked into Serana's eyes, seeing a reflection of his own resolve. "We will face this together," he said, his voice stronger now. "We will seek retribution and find a way to ease our suffering." Serana smiled, a rare and genuine smile. "Yes, Eldur. Together, we will find our path." As the night embraced them, they stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Their bond, forged in pain and strengthened by their shared resolve, would guide them through the darkness. Was thick with the tension as Eldur and Serana moved through the shadows, their eyes fixed on the sprawling estate before them. This was the stronghold of a powerful drug lord, a fortress guarded by over 100 armed men. To most, it would be an impenetrable fortress, but to Eldur and Serana, it was a playground of vengeance. They slipped past the outer defenses with ease, their supernatural speed and stealth rendering them invisible to the guards. As they approached the inner courtyard, they split up, each taking a different route to unleash their wave of death. Eldur struck first, descending upon a group of guards with the fury of a storm. His movements were a blur, his strength unstoppable. He broke necks, tore out throats, and left a trail of blood in his wake. Each kill brought a dark satisfaction, and he looked up at Serana with a savage smile. Serana mirrored his actions, her attacks swift and lethal. She moved through the guards like a shadow, her fangs sinking into flesh, her claws ripping through armor and bone. Her eyes met Eldur's across the battlefield, and they shared a moment of pure, unadulterated pleasure in the carnage they wrought. The guards had no chance. They fell one by one, their screams echoing through the night. The air was thick with the scent of blood and fear, and Eldur and Serana thrived in it. Each death was a release. Each moment of suffering they caused eased their own burdens. As the last guard fell, Serana and Eldur stood amidst the carnage, their chests heaving with the exhilaration of the hunt. Blood dripped from their hands and mouths, and they relished the destruction they had caused. The estate, once a bastion of power and control, was now a graveyard. Serana looked at Eldur, her eyes gleaming. "We've done it again," she said, her voice filled with dark satisfaction. Eldur nodded, wiping blood from his lips. "Yes, and it feels liberating." Unknown to them, a familiar face watched from the shadows. Dr. Thorne, his eyes narrowed. observed their actions with a mix of curiosity and disdain. He spoke softly to himself, his voice barely a whisper. "I did not create you to be released from pain, from suffering," he muttered. "I will send someone to ensure you both feel the pain and suffering you were meant to embody." As Eldur and Serana reveled in their victory, Dr. Thorne disappeared into the night, his mind already plotting his next move. The tranquility they found in their shared vengeance would soon be shattered, and their journey would take an even darker turn. For now, however, Eldur and Serana were united in their purpose, their connection stronger than ever. Together, they would face whatever came next, determined to find solace in each other's company and in the retribution they delivered to a world that had wronged them. Eldur and Serana sat in a hidden location, safe from the day's light and the prying eyes of their enemies. The secluded spot provided them with a rare moment of peace. Eldur broke the silence first, his voice filled with gratitude and resolve. "Serana, you have saved me. My life was an eternal cycle of pain and suffering. I lost everything until I met you. The day you joined me at Fort Hope was the day my void began to fill. The eternal loneliness, the pain was eased. Today, even elders can know real peace, even if it means the suffering of others." Serana smiled softly, her eyes reflecting a shared understanding. "Yes, Eldur, I always thought I was alone." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "My parents died when I was young, and I was left to survive on the streets. Eventually, I was taken in by an orphanage, but it was a harsh place. I married young, at 16, but my husband was abusive and left me when I was pregnant. My son died of fever when he was but 2 years old, and with him, any hope I had." She continued, her voice steady. "I lived a life of solitude and pain, just like you, but it was not until I realized how similar and connected we were that I saw a chance for peace and happiness once more." At that moment, they heard the sound of clapping hands. Turning, they saw Dr. Thorne emerging from the shadows, his face a mask of both pride and disdain. "My children," Dr. Thorne began, "I watched with pride as you both enacted your retribution upon others, how you became weapons of the pain you suffered, how your pain drove you to be the best and worst among us. But this," he spat the words with contempt, "you are not meant to be happy. You are meant for pain and suffering, to reap your pain unto others, as is every elder. And Eldur, I will not forget your betrayal to my father. Now you two must separate and go about your ways. This simply cannot be." Eldur stood, his eyes blazing with defiance. "No," he said firmly. "I will not abandon Serana, just as she did not abandon me." Dr. Thorne's eyes narrowed. "Have you both forgotten who it was that truly saved you?" Serana rose to stand beside Eldur. "Saved us. If not for you, we would be dead and at peace. Instead, you doomed us to an eternity of suffering. So we broke the rules. We refused to suffer any longer." Dr. Thorne's expression turned sinister. "Oh, this will be fun. A challenge, then," he declared. "I will send but one to serve me. When he wins, if either of you survive, then I will allow this. But I give you fair warning. You will not survive." Eldur stepped forward, his voice a growl of determination. "Send them. Send them all." Dr. Thorne laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "Very well. Prepare yourselves." With that, Dr. Thorne disappeared into the shadows, leaving Eldur and Serana alone once more. They stood together, their resolve unbroken. "We will face whatever comes," Eldur said. his voice resolute. "Together." Serana nodded, her eyes meeting his. Together. As the night deepened, they prepared for the inevitable battle. Their bond had been forged in pain and strengthened by their shared defiance. No matter what Dr. Thorne sent their way, they would stand as one, determined to carve out their own path and find the peace they both so desperately sought. Laughter in the darkness. Serana and Eldur sat alone in their hidden sanctuary, the quiet of the night enveloping them. Serana broke the silence, her voice tinged with confusion and curiosity. Why has he appeared now after all this time? If he has some connection with us, why have we not seen him in our battles with the undead, the lycan, winter, and the gods? Eldur sighed, his gaze distant. "I know not, my dear, but he mentioned I betrayed his father. I have betrayed many in my time. Does he mean Eldritch, the sage Nocturna? I have had the pleasure of enriching all of their lives." Serana smiled at his jest, but the question still lingered. "There is a reason we have not seen him before. I just cannot figure this out yet. Why would he not show himself during the battles of Crimson Dawn?" Eldur nodded thoughtfully. "We will have to tread carefully until we understand him better. Do you think we will need help to face whatever it is he sends against us?" Serana laughed, a sound that echoed through the darkness. "Who would help us, Eldur? I think we have caused more betrayal between us than the entire race of elders." At that moment, something unexpected happened. Both Eldur and Serana burst into laughter, a deep, genuine laughter that they hadn't experienced in centuries. Serana could barely speak through her laughter. "Send them all," she managed to say. Eldur joined in, his laughter booming as he fell to the floor, clutching his sides. The walls of their sanctuary seemed to reverberate with their mirth. For a brief moment, the pain and suffering that had defined their existence were forgotten. In that fleeting instance, they found solace in each other's presence, something they had not felt in a long time. As their laughter subsided, they lay on the floor, still chuckling softly. Eldur looked over at Serana, his eyes filled with a rare warmth. "Only with you could I find such a moment of peace." Serana nodded, her smile lingering. "Our bond is something even Dr. Thorne cannot break. Together, we will face whatever comes our way." They sat up, the seriousness of their situation slowly returning, but tempered by the connection they had just reaffirmed. The question of Dr. Thorne's sudden appearance still loomed over them, but for now, they were ready to face it together. "We will uncover his motives," Eldur said resolutely, "and we will stand strong against whatever he sends." Serana agreed, her resolve matching his. "We are stronger together. No matter what comes, we will face it as one." With that, they prepared themselves for the challenges ahead, their spirits bolstered by the rare moment of shared joy. The darkness outside their sanctuary was vast and threatening, but within, they had found a light that could guide them through even the most daunting trials. Dr. Thorne traversed an old mountain pass, his shadow form making light work of the dangerous mountain sides and edges. He arrived at his destination, a cave unreachable by any but the elders. As he entered, a voice greeted him from the darkness. "You have returned." "Yes, my child," Dr. Thorne replied, "and I have need of your special talent." From the shadows, a figure emerged, its face pale with deep sunken eyes and skin flaking like aged parchment. The figure's eyes gleamed with a sinister curiosity. "What is it this time? A lycan out of control, like last time?" "No," Dr. Thorne said, his voice heavy with purpose. 2 elders who have defied me and my father. The figure's eyes burned with renewed hatred.
Then they shall know the punishment of the Master, the creator of Azrael, the most powerful of all elders.
Dr. Thorne nodded, his expression stern. Be swift in thy punishment. You must kill at least one, so the other may suffer eternally. The Master, the elder who had created the most potent elders, stepped fully from the shadows. His body was old and weathered, yet he radiated an aura of pure hatred and malice. His presence was a testament to the centuries of suffering and vengeance he had wrought upon the world. Rest assured, Dr. Thorne, the Master said, his voice a chilling whisper. Their defiance shall be met with a retribution they cannot fathom. With a final nod, Dr. Thorne watched as the Master prepared himself. His form, though aged, moved with a deadly grace. The shadows seemed to cling to him, amplifying his dark presence. The Master was ready to enact the retribution on Eldur and Serana. Remember, Dr. Thorne said, his voice echoing in the cavern, one must die, so the other may suffer. The Master gave a twisted smile. They shall beg for the release of death, but only one will receive it. The other's torment will be a testament to their folly. As the Master began his journey to find Eldur and Serana, Dr. Thorne lingered for a moment, his mind already plotting the next steps. He had set in motion a chain of events that would either break the rebellious elders or forge them into something even more formidable. Either outcome would serve his purpose. The Master, with his aura of ancient malevolence, moved with purpose and speed, traversing the treacherous mountain paths as if they were nothing. His hatred fueled him, driving him toward his targets with an unwavering determination. The punishment he would deliver would be swift and merciless, a true reflection of the Master's dark heart. As he descended from the mountains, the Master's thoughts were singular. Eldur and Serana would pay for their defiance. Their suffering would be legendary, a new chapter in the endless saga of vengeance and retribution among the elders. The Knight was his ally, and soon the rebellious elders would feel the full weight of his wrath. The battle with the Master. Eldur and Serana felt the overwhelming presence of something powerful, an essence of an elder radiating pure hatred and evil. They stepped outside their hidden location, standing there in the darkness, facing the one known only as the Master. The Master spoke first, his voice dripping with contempt. Are you ready to die for your defiance? The power radiating from the Master was overwhelming, even for Eldur and Serana. Serana spoke first, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. We are no strangers to death. If you are to be the one to deliver its final blow, then so be it. We shall die together. The Master sneered. No, I will kill only one. The other I will leave for an eternity of torment. Eldur, stepping through the shadow, launched a ferocious attack, appearing behind the Master. The Master simply moved and swatted Eldur like an insect. You are no match for me. I was given power by Nocturna himself. Serana lunged at the Master, only to be swatted aside like a fly. Both Eldur and Serana lay on the floor, bruised and battered. The Master laughed an evil laugh. This is your doom. But instead of fear, Serana began to laugh. Send them all, she said through her laughter. Eldur burst into laughter as well. The Master, confused and enraged, demanded, What is this? You are about to meet your doom, and you laugh like children. What the hell? Eldur said, launching himself at the Master once more. This time, his attacks were faster, so fast that even the Master had trouble avoiding them. But with a huge swipe, the Master lashed at Eldur, sending him flying into an unmoving heap. Serana, angered by the fear of losing Eldur, leapt at the Master with renewed vigor. Her speed and agility forced the Master to use all his prowess to avoid her attacks. Yet, in a moment of vulnerability, she too was sent flying through the air by the Master. Both Eldur and Serana lay on the floor, motionless. The Master spoke with finality. And now, the end. But then the laughter returned. Eldur rose to his feet, cackling, "Send them all!" He attacked the Master once again. Serana's voice echoed, "Send them all!" She joined the fray, and together they lashed out violently at the Master. A blow from Serana connected, followed by Eldur's fist. The Master staggered back, his face a mask of shock. "Enough!" he screamed, unleashing a massive attack that knocked both Eldur and Serana down. Eldur rose, but Serana did not. He tried to lift her, but she remained unresponsive. The Master laughed. "Looks like you have the raw deal, Eldur. She is dead." Eldur's face twisted into a fury. His entire life of pain and suffering coursed through him. No Eldur had felt pain such as this, and pain was what fueled their powers. The Master could feel it, stepping back curiously, unsure of himself for the first time. All of Eldur's life, his pain was overwhelming, but this, the loss of Serana, was a pain unmatched by even the most potent Eldur. In a blind fury, he unleashed this very pain, charging at the Master. Each blow connected, with a force driven by his infinite suffering. The Master took hit after hit, blow after blow, until he lay defeated. But Eldur did not stop. His pain was an infinite power source of suffering, and he continued to batter the defeated Master again and again. He was lost in his rage until he heard it. "Eldur." It was Serana. "I am okay." In that moment, Eldur changed. His pain and suffering were filled by the only one who was able to fill his loss, his void. He ran and grabbed Serana in his arms, holding her tightly. Serana looked up at him, her eyes filled with both pain and relief. "We did it, Eldur. Together." Eldur nodded, his face softening. "Yes, together. Always." They stood there, the remnants of their battle surrounding them, but for the first time they felt a true connection, a true bond that even the darkest forces could not break. Together they were unstoppable, and together they would face whatever came next. A new resolve. "Well, well," a voice echoed through the darkness. "You have won," Dr. Thorne said, stepping from the shadows. "I know not how you won, but you did. And unlike you, Eldur, I keep my word. I shall no longer challenge this decision you two have made, but my father is most displeased with you. He will be more so now that you have destroyed the Master. This was a creation of his making. I can only warn you that he will send more than one to finally finish you." Serana, still feeling the pain, but filled with defiance, laughed. "Send them all!" Eldur, despite his battered state, burst into laughter as well. The sound echoed through the night, a symbol of their unbroken spirit. Dr. Thorne, puzzled, shook his head. "I have no idea what is happening, but I want you to know, a piece of me is proud of you two, my children, for you have done something no other has done. You have found peace, peace within each other. I knew you two were special." Eldur, bloodied but determined, looked up. "Who are you?" Dr. Thorne smiled, a rare, almost fatherly smile. "I am your father, your creator." With that, he disappeared into the shadows, leaving a battered but resolute Eldur and Serana behind. As the night enveloped them, Serana looked at Eldur, her eyes filled with determination. "We will stand together, always," she said, her voice unwavering. Eldur nodded, his strength renewed by her presence. "No matter what comes, we face it side by side." Serana took his hand, their bond stronger than ever. "We have faced the worst, and we have survived. We are stronger together, Eldur. Let them come. We will make them regret underestimating us." Eldur squeezed her hand, a fierce light in his eyes. "Yes, together, we are unstoppable. We will face whatever challenges come our way, and we will prevail." They stood there, the remnants of their battles scattered around them, but they were not broken. They had found something more powerful than vengeance: each other. Their connection was a beacon in the darkness, guiding them forward. As dawn approached, they knew their fight was far from over. Dr. Thorne's warning echoed in their minds, but it only strengthened their resolve. They would face whatever came their way, and they would do it together. No force, no elder, no creature from the shadows could break their bond. Hand in hand, they walked away from the battlefield, ready for whatever the future held. They were Eldur and Serana, bound by pain, and prepared to face the world side by side. Their journey was just beginning, and together they would forge a new path, one that defied the darkness and embraced the light within them.
Greetings! It's Professor Shadow here, and I'd like to thank you personally for enjoying and watching the three-part saga of Eldur and Serana. I'd heartedly like to thank you all for all of your shares, for your likes, for your comments. I created the Eldur and Serana saga for one reason: to show that although we did it through elders or vampires, I wanted to show that no matter how much pain we go through our lives, no matter that breakup or that business failure or that bill that can't be paid or that person that stabs you in the back or things just aren't going your way, each and every one of them is a pain, and pain is something that only makes us stronger. Just like the elders, the pain we feel through life grows us into the person we are today. If we look back to see all of the trouble and the trauma we've gone through our lives, each and every one of those pains have grown us into the person we are today. So no matter what's happening in your world today, always remember, whatever pain you're going through right now is only making you stronger. But beware. Maybe that pain that you overcome, that you fight for, will have someone knocking on your door by the name of Dr. Thorne. If you really enjoyed the saga of Eldur and Serana, then don't forget to subscribe and like the channel, share and comment on the videos, as it really does help me create more and more of this material just for you. Professor Shadow here. I'm going to be signing off, and see you real soon.